It seems like Nintendo has some code name for a brand new system. Now, I'm not talking about the Nintendo Switch 3 because I feel like we're multiple years away from that, but the Nintendo Switch 2 Lite. Although the RAM shortage and everything associated with that, I feel like this is a perfect budget option for the Nintendo Switch 2, especially if you don't want to play it in TV mode. And what's the point of having all of these features if you're never going to use them? If you primarily use your Nintendo Switch inside of handheld mode, well, this is the perfect option. So we got a bunch of things to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 Lite or the potential release of other systems on the Switch 2 lineup. Anyways, let's get straight into the video. Okay, so if this is truly the Nintendo Switch 2 Lite, when could we expect to release? Is it going to be in 2027, sort of like when the original Nintendo Switch Lite launched? Well, I don't necessarily think that's the case. Because of the RAM shortage, if they want to do this, they could get rid of some of the parts that you don't technically need to make a Lite system, like the 4K support, the functionality to go in dock mode and remove a couple other things so you can just use it in handheld. Maybe you can get rid of a bit of RAM so then it makes it cheaper, because RAM prices are out the wazoo. What if we're completely wrong? What if it's not a Lite system? Okay then, what if it's an OLED system? Now, an OLED system definitely would be interesting, but I feel like it's definitely not the time to release an OLED system. Not only is the Nintendo Switch 2 already pretty expensive as it is, with the OLED system involved, it would probably be like $600, let's be honest. But what if it's not that at all either? What if it's just a code name for a different variant of the Nintendo Switch 2? Like we saw with the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Nintendo Switch OLED, or heck, even the Echoes of Wisdom Nintendo Switch Lite. Now, all of these things were great, and they did have different code names when they were getting sort of constructed. We didn't know what it was until we kind of sort of figured out what it was. But overall, the point being said, this could mean a number of different reasons, but a Switch Lite would make the most sense, because the Switch Lite is perfect for those of you who have either smaller hands and just feel really comfortable to hold. Because one of the big downsides of the Nintendo Switch 2 is that your hands start to cramp after a little bit of playing. Sometimes you're just playing away and then you can't feel your fingers. Your fingers feel numb. Let me know if this has ever happened to you and you can bite down and it doesn't actually hurt. It just really numb and gets uncomfortable. Other systems do that as well, but the Switch Lite was perfect for that. It was a good balance between price and comfortability. So if we are going to be getting a Switch 2 Lite, this would essentially do everything that the Switch 2 can do, but be able to play in 4K and in TV mode. But what if you just don't even care about 4K? You can't even notice a difference between 1080 and 4K. You just want a seamless experience to go and play pretty much anywhere you want. Have the original feeling as a 3DS or a Switch Lite or whatever it is, just a handheld console that you can go wherever you want. This is the perfect time, the perfect feeling, the perfect mix between balance and price. But overall, it's still very interesting, and it seems like we are going to be getting a new variant of a Switch 2. Like I said, it's not confirmed to be a Nintendo Switch 2 Lite, but it looks like this going into that direction makes the most sense for the RAM apocalypse, the RAM shortage, the crisis, and RAM manufacturing and everything else. Think about it this way. We know that the Switch 2 price will eventually go up in price if this AI bubble or RAM as a whole just doesn't get better. So, to combat that, the Switch 2 Lite would be the greatest option. $300 for a console, and heck, if they have to raise the prices, $400 for a Lite system. I think it's still worth it. Because, honestly, I feel like I've played my Nintendo Switch 2 more in handheld mode than I have in dock mode. So it's definitely a very interesting thing. It's a very interesting time indeed. So then it allows players to just play the original Nintendo Switch games, the original Nintendo Switch 2 games, and everything associated to that. But overall, What do you think about this? Do you think we are going to be getting a Nintendo Switch 2 Lite, or do you think that it's going to be a different variant of the console, like a Pokemon system? Back in 2018, we did get the Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee sort of system. So could this be what they're doing right now? For Pokemon Winds and Waves, are we going to be seeing a bright blue Joy-Con and a bright red Joy-Con for Winds and then Waves? It could be true. It could be possible that this is going to be that code name, that Pokemon Nintendo Switch. If you took a look at that picture, it just looks like an original Nintendo Switch. That's essentially just a placeholder for what's to come. So, I think that this is definitely mind-boggling. I think that this is going to be great, and hopefully it is a Nintendo Switch 2 Lite, or hopefully it's something else. Because I feel like I would be a little bit disappointed if it is a new variant of the Switch 2, because technically you get yourself your Switch, you're really excited, and then, well, they released this variant that you have to buy the brand new Nintendo Switch 2 to get the Joy-Cons that it comes with. This black Joy-Con just isn't it, even though I mostly play on Pro Controller if I'm playing it on TV, but still, it's not the same. So maybe for the 40th anniversary of the Legend of Zelda series, we are going to be getting different Joy-Cons. Maybe we are going to be getting a Switch 2 Lite at some point. Now, it's probably not going to be happening in early 2026 if this is what's going to be happening. And of course, Nintendo leaks, rumors, patents, and everything don't necessarily come true half the time. Like what in the world happened to the double screens? Well, if you get a Nintendo Switch 2 Lite, maybe this is what that's for. The double screen shenanigans. Maybe that's what you're going to be getting. 3DS, DS games, and if you have the original Nintendo Switch, well, you just plug it into the top USB port. I don't actually know what in the world that is actually for, because I haven't really used it. I really didn't get to use it. Sure, it's used for camera, but besides that, you could definitely put something like a screen on it. You could play DS, 3DS, old Pokemon games, who knows, Mario 3D Land, Kirby, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, it's definitely a very interesting thing. It's something that you think about. You just think about, you look at the code and you're like, it could be a Switch 2 Lite. It could be a Switch 2 OLED. It could be a Switch 2 Lite OLED. Who knows? If Nintendo decides to do that, that'd be great. And imagine if they decide to release a whole bunch of different systems. Like you have the base model, the Nintendo Switch 2. Then you have the Nintendo Switch 2 Lite. Then you have the Nintendo Switch 2 OLED. Then you have the Nintendo Switch 2 Lite OLED. Who knows? It's definitely very interesting, and I honestly hope they do that. It gives consumers the place to just buy which console they actually want, they actually need. I don't know. It's very interesting. So anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope that you consider to hit the like button. Maybe subscribing if you're new. We do a bunch of different Nintendo content on this channel. Nintendo Switch, Mario, Pokemon, Zelda, Kirby, whatever other brand there is. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day. With that being said, have an amazing day. See you in the next one. I know I told you to have an amazing day twice, so make sure that you have a good day.